And welcome back to Little Cuts, our weekly mini-sode where we dig into the things that we've been watching recently. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth, and this week we're talking a classic in 3D, a twisty Airbnb, a twisty Airbnb nightmare fantasy, Pennywise, the worst hookup, and what the fuck, the movie.
I think that definitely, I cannot wait to talk about our horror comedy today, because, boy, I don't really know what we watched, but...
I don't either, but it was great, but anyway.
Before we talk about movies, though, we are like a week into our Patreon. We've dropped our first Seltzer for Life episode. We've dropped our first Fresh Wounds episode. This is our first, live recording for Patreon.
And we already have 11 patrons, which is incredible.
Yeah.
The reviews are in for our Fresh Wounds episode, and people love it. So
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone who's tweeted about it. We appreciate you, because...
We sure do.
Shout out to Tony for talking about demon cheeks, because we inappropriately spoke about demon butt cheeks. And if that doesn't entice you to subscribe to our Patreon at the $10 level for Fresh Wounds, then... I don't know what to tell you. You have a little RSS feed. We have a private RSS feed. We are technologically savvy.
Oh, yes. Well, the nice thing that we discovered with this RSS feed is that it actually can replace your normal feed, because it will have both Fresh Wounds and your regular episodes on it. So it's like you don't have to worry about managing multiple feeds and stuff. You can hear us talk about demonic butt cheeks and both of our actually horrific first watches for the movie, which I'm gonna say are two of the worst ways to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Actually, best and worst. But
yeah, I agree. It's fun. It's an hour long, so it's a full episode. It's not short like Seltzer for Life. It is a full length episode. We want to make sure it is worth the money. I think it is. It was very fun to edit. It made me laugh the whole time. Links everywhere. You can find them to become a patron. Share them. Thank you.
Please.
Anyway. Okay, I want to hear about this classic in 3D. I think I know what it is, but I'm very excited to hear about it.
Okay, here's the thing. Did Jaws need to be converted into 3D? No. No, it did not. Am I happy it was converted into 3D? Sort of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
For a couple reasons. One, I'm never going to turn down the opportunity of seeing Jaws in a movie theater.
Yeah, that's my thing. At least it's like, that's pretty cool.
Like, Jaws, I was thinking about this as I was watching this again, that, my top 5 movies change all the time, but I do think, deep down, Jaws is probably my favorite movie ever. It's, such a comfort watch for me at this point that, I will turn it on and I watch it. It's so well done. It's so paced so well.
Good. It's so good.
And the one thing I will say about the 3D conversion is that it actually kind of forced me to watch this movie for the first time in a way, because of the way that it is storybooked, I would say. Instead of things coming out of the screen, it's a lot of the foreground is grounded further ahead than the background.
Oh, cool.
And so just because there were details that are popping up that wouldn't normally pop up to me, it made me actually kind of appreciate the movie in a different way.
Wait, that's really cool though, because it's not just a cheesy jump scare thing of the shark coming out, that they actually layer the space, which makes it a little bit more worth it, I bet, which that's pretty cool.
So I would focus on details that I normally wouldn't, and it actually made me feel like I was seeing some things for the first time that I had never noticed before. And yeah, it's just background stuff a lot of times, or it's a fence that's staged in the foreground. But because of that, it actually gave me a new appreciation for it. So in a way, I'm kind of thankful for it. Plus, this theater that we were in was packed. It was for, the National Cinema Day, so everything was $3. Everyone was in the movie theater. And there were people that I'm pretty sure had never seen it before, because there were people that were jumping and gasping in appropriate places and going when that fake shark, the kids with the shark fin were floating. They thought it was real. It was such a good movie going experience that, I don't know, it reminded me of why I love cinema.
That's so fucking cool. Oh, that's amazing. It's like nothing more
Yeah.
fun than going to see a movie that you love with a theater full of people, and especially people who haven't seen it before. Like, I've done that before with A Thing, and it's just like so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so cool. And
It
then just like
was.
to see a movie you've never gotten a chance to see on the big screen before, or like don't get a lot of opportunities to.
Don't get a lot of opportunities, yeah.
It's neat.
It is. It's so cool. Movies are fun.
Movies are cool.
But speaking of cool movies, and a movie that I know you're not going to spoil because I'm seeing it tomorrow, let's talk about this twisty Airbnb nightmare. I'm so excited.
Speaking of cinema being great and why I love cinema, Barbarian, that is coming out tomorrow. Directed by Whitest Kid You Know member Zach Kreger, I think his name is.
That's wild in and of itself.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. I posted my review today, and someone I knew from college was like, what is it with sketch comedians being the best horror filmmakers of all time? And I was like, because they understand timing better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know, that line between horror and comedy is so thin.
Yeah, exactly.
That it makes sense.
Well, and like we've seen that so much now, but then talking to so many people about like why they make horror comedies and how a lot of them had like Keeping Company. They were sketch comedians.
Yeah.
But this movie, for those of you who haven't seen the commercial, it doesn't really tell you a lot. I'm not going to tell you a lot because this is a movie that you need to see just like to experience it. And like, I think it's going to be, it's playing everywhere. This is a 20th Century Studios movie. Basically, it's a Disney movie, which is, I think, it's technically a Disney movie, which I think is fucking hysterical, especially when you see it. Go see it, hopefully in a packed theater, if you feel comfortable doing that. No pressure. I understand. I understand people are still worried, but packed theater. It's Georgina Campbell plays a woman who goes to stay in an Airbnb. She has a job interview. Gets to the Airbnb. Bill Skarsgård is staying there. There's been a mistake with the booking. Things get weird. Something in the basement, etc., etc. I won't go further than that at all. But let's just say, horror is doing so many cool things in 2022, and it's real cool that this got made, and it's going to be in so many theaters because it's fucked up. It's real fucked up.
See, that's what I love to hear. I also heard it's kind of funny. Is it funny?
It is. It's a little funny and deeply fucked up. Like, especially for what it is. Like, for this, like, wider release, like, this big marketing campaign and stuff, like, I'm very excited that this is, like, one of the big, like, early Halloween releases.
Hell yeah. Honestly, it's probably one of my most anticipated movies this year. I've been, like, counting down the days. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's... me and my roommate are going to go see it tomorrow. And we're like, oh my gosh, there's 2 sleeps left. And then there's 1 sleep left. Like, I am excited for this movie.
It's like Christmas. Yeah, I won't say anything else. But, one last thing I will say is Justin Long plays one of the most deplorable characters I've seen in horror in a long time. I promise you that's not really a spoiler. Like, he's just a gross dude. And it doesn't have... So, someone was asking me about streaming about it. I don't know, but because it's 20th Century Studios and there's all that stuff with, like, Hulu and Disney Plus, I have a feeling it probably will be out on streaming relatively soon. There's nothing to back this up. This is just my theory because who is putting it out and how that model usually works. I mean, like, Nope is already on demand. You know what I mean?
I'm sure it's going to be hitting Hulu or something before Halloween.
I think so too. So, if you can't see it, try to avoid spoilers. Mute the word on your timeline or just stay off Twitter. I don't know, but yeah.
I'm so excited.
God damn it. Keep saying one more thing. People have compared this to this year's Malignant. It's fun, but it's a much more fucked up, twisted fun than Malignant. It's not really campy like Malignant.
Okay.
It's like much more like nihilistic.
Sweet. Oh. Can't wait.
Anyway, I'll stop talking about it. We should do a spoiler episode, but we'll talk about that not. I was just thinking about wanting to do like, whatever. We'll talk about that offline. But I want to hear about just like the concept of fantasy.
The concept of fantasy.
Fantasy. Tell me about it.
So before we started recording, we were both bemoaning the fact that Resident Evil was canceled, right, on Netflix, and the fact that regardless of why it was canceled, it comes across as like the bigots have won, because a lot of the flack there, I'm not saying that like all the flack, because there have been some people that have had some issues with the plot or the pacing, yada yada yada, of Resident Evil, but like the fact that it is a very like it has diversity in it seems to be a sticking point for so much.
Mostly people of color.
And so I'm seeing that conversation, and I'm also starting to watch, this is where the fantasy comes in, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
Okay.
I started to watch that,
okay.
which again has a lot of racists with their panties in a wad, because there are black characters and people that are not white in this show.
Guys, it takes place in a fictional fantasy world called Middle Earth, with a guy named Saruman who lords over a domain called Mordor. Fuck you.
That's it. I got nothing else. That's it.
I have not watched a second of the show, but I want to. I have not watched any of it, but the fucking discussion about it online makes me want to punch someone in the mouth.
Oh, it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry. But here's the thing. It's good. This
is what I've
really
heard.
good.
And I'm very excited to watch it now, because I was like, it's gonna go either way.
Oh, it's really good.
Right.
It looks expensive.
Okay.
The way that they stage the CG actually gives it, I don't know, perspective and depth, which is something that I bemoan so much of in like modern blockbusters. It feels homogenous in a way that does not feel like we have people CG and we're acting against each other. It actually feels like they're together. And these first 2 episodes that are out right now, I think by the time this premieres, the 3rd episode will be out, are directed by J.A. Bayona, who directed The Orphanage, which is one of my favorite movies.
Oh, shit. Really?
Yes, and he directed When a Monster Calls.
Yeah.
The Impossible.
Yeah, he's cool. Wow.
He also directed, I believe, I want to say that he's directed some episodes of Penny Dreadful. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. Well.
And then, of course, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, but they can't all be winners. But of the World series, that one is actually my favorite, but none of them are very good. Not his problem. That it was more of a screenwriting issue. But anyway,
this has been
there's horror
Jurassic
in these.
World corner.
There's horror in these episodes. When they introduce the orcs, they are like crawling out of a tunnel that they built in someone's house, and it is one orc that fights against this woman and her child, and it is like horror moment, horror beats. He is gnarly looking. We get some aquatic horror as Galadriel is lost on the sundering seas, and there's this giant underwater creature that is attacking her meager, like, put together boat. We have like fantastic horror moments in these first 2 episodes that are like, oh, this is fun. And it's really interesting. Like the plot is I don't really know what's going on 100%. There's a man falling out of a sky that's as a meteor. There's Harfoots, which are I guess an offshoot of hobbits, and they discover this man that has fallen out of the sky. There's the elves that are looking for the remains of Sauron that can't find him, and so Galadriel is being sent back over to the other world, and she decides to stay. There's the men folk that are worried about like trying to keep everyone together after these wars. We get to see some dwarves. So there's like all these different characters that are separated that I think all their plots are going to eventually converge. But it is a lot of fun, and it has some horror cred to it. So I highly recommend it.
I know it's based on like the appendices of the Similarian.
Yeah.
Whatever people's gripes are about whatever fucking appendix, whatever. Like,
whatever.
As someone who has a Tolkien tattoo, shut up.
Do you really?
Yeah. From The Hobbit, it's Smaug and the Lonely Mountain from the map.
Oh,
and
okay.
The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love Lord of the Rings, and I was nervous about the show because Lord of the Rings is very special to me. But I haven't read the.
I think it's a lot of fun.
And I haven't read the Similarian. Sorry, nerds, but like I don't want to read a history book. Sorry,
right.
nerds. As my fiance has read it, like it's like I'm just dissing myself at this point. Anyway, I'm so glad.
I'll be curious to hear what you think of it when you guys eventually watch it. I think it's a lot of fun. It hooked me immediately.
And it's Morfydd Clark, who was in Saint Maud. So like,
yeah.
She's
Oh my
Galadriel, right? She's
gosh.
Galadriel,
Oh my
right?
god, she is. You're right. I
Yeah.
was like, why does she look so familiar?
Oh yeah,
And
she
I
was
didn't look
Saint
her up.
Maud, which is incredible. I was like, okay, cool. So you went from that shit to this. Like, good for you. Like, that's what you deserve. Get that Amazon Lord of the Rings coin.
Uh-huh.
Thriving.
Thriving. Let's talk about Pennywise.
Finally watched It Chapter 2.
Wait, so you had never seen it before?
Ow.
Mary Beth. You saw the first one, but not the second one? Mary Beth. What the fuck?
I run a horror website.
Okay.
Am I fired now?
No,
fired?
it just surprises me.
I think when it came out, why? I think it came out, it got middling reviews. It was 3 hours long. And I think I was annoyed with just, like, the Pennywise episode. I don't know. I was being, like, a contrarian. Like, I was just being a shit. Like, that was like, it's not worth once again, I fall victim to my own hubris. I understand this about myself, and that's fine. But Steve and I were like, I've been talking about watching it for fucking, like, a year. Like, I've been like, we should watch it. I know. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, but I was like, there's no emergency to see it. like, I don't need to see it. We finally got our shit together, and on Friday, our 10-year anniversary was on Thursday, and Friday we got a couples massage, and then came home and ordered sushi and watched it Chapter 2. It was an incredible celebration. That movie is fucking nuts.
Yeah?
I loved it.
Did you?
So, I say this as somebody who has not seen the first part in a long time and, like, liked it, but I have a lot of distance from it, so I watched this one and was like, this is so fucking different than the first one, but I kind of love it. Like, Steve and I couldn't stop laughing. It's so goofy.
It's very goofy.
The
Just Call Me Angel. What? Oh
my god, the woman at Bev's old apartment is like dirt, 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 dirt in the background. Like, Steve was like, am I supposed to be laughing? I'm like, I'm not quite sure. But the CGI is a little bit iffy, but the monsters are cool. The CGI
monster
is iffy, but the
cool.
monster design. Look, I'm not saying it's an incredible movie, but I had a lot of fun watching it, and it did not feel like it was 3 hours long.
No.
So, and the performances are generally okay. Bill Hader's incredible. Bill Hader's good in fucking everything. So, but James McAvoy looked like he was really unsure of his own human form in that movie, I will say. It's like, are you okay? You just seem like trying really hard to be a human being right now. I don't know, like, what. He didn't feel like a real person in that movie to me. I was like, are you just playing a human? Like, what is going on?
I enjoyed that movie, but I have a hard time dealing with the way it handles homosexuality.
So bad. So bad. The Bill Hader stuff, I was like, could we try a little? I don't know. I'd love to hear your perspective on it. Please tell me.
I just had a hard time with the opening.
Yeah.
With Adrian Mellon's character, because this is a big moment in... Have you read the book?
I've read this part of the book.
I think, okay, so my problem is it is one of my favorite novels.
Oh, is it really?
It is. It's one of my favorites. I've read it probably the most of any King book, which is ironic since it's so fucking large.
How many times have you read it?
4 or 5.
Holy shit. It?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Sick.
It really works for me, and I think the way that it tackles homophobia in that part of the book really works for me, because it's not just a one moment that we're going to have and then move on from. It talks about how it digs into that, it digs into the bigotry, and it goes a lot further into it as an adult, and kind of shows that sort of bigotry hiding just underneath Main Street, if that makes sense, of like small town Americana.
Oh yeah.
In a way that feels a bit more purposeful than just having a shocking moment. Like, it felt like we're having queer trauma, and that continues even with the I forget even get what is it Richie?
Richie, oh yeah, Richie, and
Yeah.
then like the one guy who dies is the one he's in love with, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like watching the gay guy cry who hasn't come out to
Yeah.
anybody, and he's just like closeted the whole movie and suffering the whole time. That pissed me off
So
even more. Like both of those things pissed me off, but I don't. That sounds terrible. Like because it's not a fucking competition about which part is worse.
no, but
But
they
it's
go
just,
hand in hand together
it's
because
just
it's like we're using queer trauma as a way of eliciting emotion in a way that feels reductive to me and in a way that feels very disrespectful. So
like you could have.
I have a
cut
hard time
that.
getting over that aspect of it.
You could have made it something totally like, or you could have just cut. I don't know. I feel like there are ways you could have done that. Like a lot of because it is. It just like is this horrific scene at the beginning,
And then
and then
he shows up. Adrian shows up later on as like a brief cameo, and that's
but
about
there's
it.
like
Played
no.
by Xavier Dolan, by the way, who is a
Wait, really? That was
screenwriter and
him?
director. Mm-hmm. And also, he's also in The Kid in Martyrs that gets shotgunned. That's Xavier Dolan.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm.
What? That shocked me
Yeah.
into silence.
Is it Xavier or Xavier? I don't know how
don't
to
know.
pronounce the
I
name,
don't. I don't.
but yeah, that's him playing Adrian Mellon.
Why does that anyway? That yeah. But anyway.
I
don't
have
even
rendered you speechless.
You've rendered me speechless. I just am like, wait, because Adrian Mellon's the one that like breaks out of the hospital and tries to kill.
No, Adrian Mellon's the gay guy that gets murdered.
Oh, the gay guy that gets murdered. Okay, but still, oh,
by it.
Poor Xavier Dolan just gets like a lot of movies about him getting like fucking torn apart by homophobia. There's a Boy Erased too.
Oh, is he?
He's one of like the kids that I've never actually seen that movie because apparently it's terrible. But he's one of like the kids in the camp or the school or whatever.
Oh.
Anyway, so yes, I finally watched it, chapter 2. I had a good time. It's really goofy and weird, and definitely does not understand how to create queer characters whatsoever.
There's a lot of fun in it.
So what's this movie? How is it described again? I'm sorry. Let me just triple check one more time how you describe this movie as the worst hookup. What?
So speaking of Justin Long, I watched House of Darkness.
Hell yeah.
Have you seen it?
Not yet.
So House of Darkness is about Justin. It stars Justin Long and Kate Bosworth, and they met at a bar, and he offers to drive her home to the countryside where she lives in this ginormous mansion, and they're parked outside, and he's like, I could walk you to the door, and she's like, well, I mean, you could come in, and he's like, or are you sure? If I need to go if it's too late. And she's like, oh, it's not about need right now, it's about want, right? And she starts like coquettishly asking, like, am I too forward for you? And then he's like, well, you don't seem put off about any of this. And she's like, this what? And he's like, the game, whatever. She's like, is this a game to you? And so there's like this dialogue that happens between the two of them where it's like awkward first conversation, but they both seem to be like hiding something, whereas he's like trying to be this general nice guy, and yet when she leaves the room he's calling his buddy being like, yeah, I'm gonna get some pussy tonight. Like he's like on the front side just being like this nice guy, and on the back side being this creep, and she is like playing along with this game with him, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and there's a lot of conversation. That is probably where the movie might lose some people, is that it's basically just a repartee between the two of them for most of the movie, and then other characters get introduced, and then it's basically just a bunch of like awkward dialogue is when people are trying to basically ferret out things about the other person. I will say that I even hate to call it a twist. I haven't talked about who the characters' names are because I feel like if I say the name,
it's so fucking obvious, but don't tell anyone else. Like unless you like have it's
no, it's very obvious very early on who this woman is.
Yeah.
And it kind of bothers me a little bit that it sort of leaves that revelation towards the end where it's like the audience, if you're a horror fan, you're going to pick up almost immediately what's going on here. And so it's one of those cases where you're a little bit ahead of the story, well, a lot of bit ahead of the story, and you're waiting for the characters to kind of catch up. But there's also like an interesting inversion of sort of like the hunter and prey dynamic that we see, because this woman is obviously toying with her prey. I almost said something else, but again, no spoilers. There's some fun in that, and there's definitely this could actually be like a play. So like the dialogue in it.
Neil LaBute is a playwright, the director and the writer.
Right.
He is a playwright. So I remember Josh Korngut at Dread Central was saying that it's like a play. It is basically like a play.
And of course, you know, Neil is infamously known for directing the Wicker Man remake. But he also, you know, directed, gosh, why did it just leave my head? In the Company of Men.
Yeah.
In 1997, which is also kind of about sexual dynamics between men and women, and this feels like a continuation of that. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this one. I don't think it's going to be for everyone because it is very talky. It's very talky. But I found the dialogue to be very, you know, witty, and sharp. It really worked for me. Cool. Even though, like, I was waiting, come on. When are we going to reveal what's happening?
Cool. Hell yeah.
It was fun.
I'm very excited to see it.
And that will be out Tuesday. But Mary Beth, this horror comedy recommended from Rory Davis over on Instagram. What did we watch? But also, what did we watch?
So we watched Dan Aykroyd's 1991 film Nothing But Trouble. This is the only film that Dan Aykroyd ever directed. And I can kind of understand why. I'm unsure how to explain what this movie is. It starts off like some weird rom-com buddy trip movie and then becomes the most wacky version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre I've ever seen.
My first thought when this movie started was like, what a 90s sitcom beginning. We have like New York City skyline, zooming over that with Ray Charles singing in the background.
It's like the Full House intro.
Yeah. I'm like, this is like 90s sitcom, romantic comedy, like all over it.
Like, and even the title, Nothing But Trouble. It's like, oh, honey. And she said, like, oh, honey, you're nothing but trouble. But then it's like this incredibly stacked cast of comedians. Like, Chevy Chase is our main guy. And that man is such an asshole.
Okay. You know, here's the thing. I love watching him in movies, but he is an utter asshole.
And I've heard he is always an asshole, and it's like, yes. No wonder he's so good at playing a snarky asshole, because he just is an asshole. He is apparently impossible to work with. Yes, I have heard this. I mean, there's a reason he left Community, was fired from Community. But he really channels that bullshit in this movie as like a finance guy who lives in the penthouse in New York apartment. He meets Demi Moore in an incredible... Meet cute with Demi Moore. In an incredible suit with her 2 dogs. It's like... And her hair. Oh, it's incredible. Love her hair. So she comes to his apartment, something about New Jersey, something about Brazilians. They get into the car to go on a road trip, and they're driving to Atlantic City. That is just like, it didn't make much sense, because if that's not the point, like, the setup is but like makes no sense, because it's not like, it doesn't matter, because it's like 24 minutes in, this movie completely is just like, oh my god, this is an absolutely insane movie. Because it goes from like, buddy road trip comedy to, there's a crazy with two Brazilian siblings, Fausto and Rinalda, who just are along for the ride. Because he has a BMW, I guess. And then they end up in Vulcanvania. After a car chase scene that goes on forever with John Candy as a cop. With John Candy. Who has turbo boosters in the back of his car. I swear to you, everybody who's listening, this is real. I am not making this shit up. This is an actual film. And it only gets weirder from there. And that is only 20 minutes into this hour and 34-minute film.
They get pulled over. They get taken to the judge's mansion where he apparently lives slash renders decisions. The the judge is like 100 some odd years old, I guess, and played by Dan Aykroyd, and having the time of his life. Like, you could tell that Dan Aykroyd is just enjoying this role. Has trapdoors, sends people into the dungeon, sends another group of people to the Mr. Bone Stripper, which is a carnival roller coaster that ends with them being stripped of their bones.
Where does the flesh go? Do they eat it?
That
They
is what I
never
wondered.
resolved if because when they shoot out the bones, they're clean. There's no blood.
They're
there's
clean.
nothing.
They're picked clean.
And then they soon after show them eating hot dogs. In the most like Texas Chainsaw Massacre dinner scene meets, someone described it as Texas Chainsaw meets Pee Wee Herman.
Oh, yes.
Letterboxd, and it's an incredible comparison. It's like comedy Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And
yeah,
that scene is hysterical because he's lowered down out of the ceiling to the dinner table, and then he presses a button and a train comes up, and it's a condiment train, and so it just like goes around to serve you ketchup and mustard.
Like, okay, you can see this movie ballooned in budget. This movie cost $40 million to make, and you can
that
see
does not surprise me in the fucking slightest. This movie is ridiculous.
They have so many like the stage design in this, the set design and everything for gags that are used once. Like, this dinner scene has the train built into the table, him being lowered out of it. It's one scene, and that cost money. Mr. Bone Stripper that's used twice in the movie, that cost money. Like, this movie looks expensive, which is ridiculous when you consider that it also has two deformed baby children things that aren't allowed in the house and are living in the junkyard. One of them is again played by Dan Aykroyd, and I don't even know what to say.
I mean, it's just like, it's such a it's so funny because it's like very 1990s, like fat people are disgusting, look at these disgusting inbred people, but like taken to a level of just like, this is like, it's all just farce. Like, it transcends insulting and just is like, I don't even know what this is. Like, is this performance art? Like, it might be performance art, honestly. Like, I'm not quite sure. Also, Tupac Shakur is in this movie.
Tupac Shakur! I was like, what the fuck?
They pull over. So they basically are collecting people by pulling them over and bringing them to the judge's house. And like, by collecting them like for entertainment. Like, there's no real purpose here. It's just like fucking with tourists, basically. They pull over it's like Tupac, a bunch of other rappers, and they just perform music in the house. And it's like, oh yeah, you're straight. John Candy plays the cop and also is unfortunately a man dressed as a woman who plays like the mute female character who gets married to Chevy Chase, like forcibly married to Chevy Chase. Like, this movie just like is so fuck you to like any kind, and it's 1991, so it's not PC time, but still it's like very much just like so much taking everything to the extreme. It's like, it's not just fat characters, it's like fat characters that are monsters, which is bad, like, which is not good, but it's just like all of those things taken to an absolutely ridiculous extreme that just makes zero sense, but it's really fun to watch.
When I tweeted, what is this movie? One of the responses from Justin Yandel was said, a Dan Aykroyd script with no outside oversight. And yeah.
So apparently Dan Aykroyd had a 300-page script for this movie initially and like read it to everybody like drunkenly one night, like at a party. Like, the worst kind of person. Like, let me read you my 300-page script. I'm like, script. I'm going to leave right now. Like, I don't want to. Like, I do not. Like, 300 pages?
I love also that it's randomly based on Centralia. Like, there is a burning mine underneath. The
very House of Wax
place.
Ending.
Yeah. I kept thinking, when is this movie gonna end? Because it feels like it has like 5 endings.
It has 5 endings. It's ridiculous. It's something. It's an experience. It's a movie.
It is an experience.
It's an experience.
I was like watching this going, I don't even understand what is happening half the time. I'm like, now we have a junkyard with deformed twins. Like, what?
Oh yeah, and then Demi Moore plays cards with them, and she's kept in a cage.
I forgot about that.
I was getting like also very like People Under the Stairs vibes a little bit because like, and also fuck, what's that French the French Christmas movie with a little kid?
Oh.
Dial S for Santa, not
Dial Code Santa.
Cause yeah, that like, I was getting vibes from The House, like those kinds of vibes from like The House and all the little traps and stuff. That it was kind of, but like the set design's incredible. I can only imagine like what the set designer did to go to like antique stores and buy every fucking trinket possible. I want to see this house, or like if it's an actual house, so bad. Like every surface of this is covered in papers or something. Like it's piles of toasters. Like not one surface does not have a huge pile of something. So, and it's like meticulously designed, which is cool, but like, good Lord, no wonder it was $40
like I said,
million.
you can see where that, right. You can see where that money went.
Well, and like they're always doing close-ups of them, of like the mechanism, so it's not even like they're giving themselves any room to fudge it. They're like, no, we have to get close-ups of how everything works.
We spent $10 million on this. We gotta
like,
fucking show people.
It really is just like they gave Dan Aykroyd carte blanche, and then he was never given carte blanche again.
No. This was an absolute failure of a movie in terms of like box office. It made $8 million on a $40 million budget.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a fucking shame. I'm not surprised though. But I mean, like, I think it's really fun. It's ridiculous. Don't go in expecting like some kind of masterpiece, but if you want to watch something when you're really like stoned, or if you're drinking with your friends, like, this
is a movie I would love to see in a movie theater with a packed audience of like people that are in on the joke and just like going, what the absolute fuck? Because this movie, it's a fever dream. It's
very Midnighter vibes. Like it would play. I want there to be like an anniversary screening at like a film festival at one of the Midnighters. But so that was Nothing But Trouble. Incredible suggestion, Rory Davis. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you
for having us watch this movie, because I had never really even heard of it, and I would never have.
No, I hadn't either.
So, very, very good recommendation. So please keep sending them in your recs, y'all. Like, we watch them, we have a good time, we enjoy them. So please do. But before we talk more about where you can send that stuff, what is our next horror comedy?
I love this movie, and anytime that I have the opportunity of talking about it, I want to bring it up. So we are watching The Boneyard from 1991, starring Phyllis Diller and a zombie poodle.
I'm so excited. You've been talking about this movie since we started the podcast, and I've never watched it, and I'm finally going to watch it. I am very excited for the zombie poodle.
There's like a Blu-ray copy, I think, that's out of print, and it's also streaming on YouTube. If you want to watch along with us, please do, because this movie is a little problematic. There's a problematic angle about it that we're definitely going to dig into, but it's a lot of fun. But who are we chatting with on Monday, Mary Beth?
So on Monday, we are chatting with podcaster and YouTuber Yutaka Yamanaha, the co-host of the... Tamanaha, okay. We are chatting with podcast... I knew I was going to fuck it up. I got into my own head again about it. On Monday, we are chatting with podcaster, YouTuber Yutaka Tamanaha, a co-host of the Horror Hour podcast and YouTube show. And we are talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors, my favorite.
Not mine.
Not Terry's, but that's okay, because your favorite one is like, you have a very good reason for why you love the one that you love, and I love it for you.
But that's not to say that I did not like this movie. I love all Nightmare on Elm Street movies. But yeah, no, it's a good conversation. I'm contrarian, as I always tend to be, it seems like. But
yeah, it is a good conversation. So listeners, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. You can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com if you have any suggestions for things we should be watching, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast. Also, we have a Patreon. Become a patron.
Please become a patron. Please. We're giving you content. But also, don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe as well.
And speaking of thank yous, thank you, Eric Power, for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Once again, thank y'all for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.